My 14-year-old niece let out a little laugh. Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would even care, she said, peeling the plastic off the $900 phone I'd just given her. Everyone in the room, about 30 people, burst out laughing. Everyone except me. I gave a small nod, and with 2 quick taps on my phone, I shut everything down: payments, credit cards, bills, subscriptions. All of it. Gone. Later that night, I packed up and left. Cut contact. Disappeared completely. All I left behind was a black backpack. Inside, they found it. Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would even care. My niece giggled again as she carefully unwrapped the phone. Her fingers were gentle, but her words? They cut deep. Like glass. The living room buzzed with voices, loud, careless chatter from my whole family. About 30 of them crammed in, talking over each other like always. In the kitchen sat the birthday cake, untouched, candles still waiting to be lit. But inside me, the fire was already going strong. My sister Megan didn't even glance up. She was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone with a smug little grin, like a judge who just got the verdict she wanted. Mom stood at the stove, stirring something, pretending not to notice what was going on. But I saw her shoulders lift just a bit, like she was silently agreeing. And Dad? He didn't even try to hide it. He chuckled, raised his beer, and muttered, "Well, she's not wrong." The room filled with laughter again. My cousin smiled, and even Uncle Tom, who barely knows me outside of the occasional dinner, let out a snort into his drink. I just stood there, frozen, like a damn fool. The same fool I'd always been. The guy who paid the bills. The one who cleaned up the messes. The one who was never quite enough. "Thanks for the phone, Uncle," my niece chirped, already snuggled up next to her mom, eyes glued to the screen. I stared at her, my face burning and my chest tight. The walls felt like they were closing in, like I couldn't breathe. But I didn't say a word. I just nodded, like always. Nodded, smiled, pretended everything was fine. Finally, Megan looked up and locked eyes with me. And in that split second, I saw it. She was enjoying this. Like she'd been waiting to watch me crumble. "All right, everyone, let's cut the cake." Mom's cheerful voice rang out, cutting the tension like a knife. But the bitterness stuck in my mouth, thick and heavy. I drifted into the kitchen and leaned on the counter as they all gathered around the table. Candles were lit. Wishes were made. I just watched. My hands curled into fists. My jaw tightened, and under all that hurt, something colder started to creep in. I felt my phone in my pocket. Just 2 taps. That's all it took. Every account I'd opened for them, bills, subscriptions, credit lines, just disappeared. Megan's, Mom's, Dad's, gone. My fingers moved automatically, like I'd been ready for this all along. I didn't even realize what I'd done until it was done. Just like that. Gone. The laughter around me faded into background noise. I was surrounded by people I'd known my whole life, and suddenly, they felt like strangers. They kept laughing, kept celebrating. But I wasn't really there anymore. I was just a walking wallet. Not anymore. I walked out without saying a word. Nobody noticed. Of course they didn't. My niece actually got something right that night. I didn't go home. I went back to my apartment, grabbed a small travel bag, threw in the basics. Then I paused. There, in the corner of my closet, was an old black backpack I hadn't thought about in ages. But that night, it finally had a purpose. I didn't pack it with clothes, or anything they'd expect. Then I made my way back. The house was still a zoo, just noise and people everywhere. Nobody noticed me sneak in, walk down the hall, and quietly leave the backpack by the stairs. Then I left. For real this time. By the time they saw it, I'd be long gone. Just a memory. A ghost. Let them open it. Let them try to figure it out. Let them sit with the silence. But the silence didn't last long. I thought there'd be yelling or maybe guilt. What I got was something louder. It started the next morning. I woke up to fists pounding on my door. No phone calls. No knocking. Just straight up banging. "Open the damn door. You think you can do this?" Dad's voice, booming, furious. I didn't say a word. Just stood still and watched the door shake like it might fall off the hinges. "I know you're in there. You think you're better than us?" His voice cracked, not just with anger, but something else. Fear. Still, I stayed quiet. I wasn't playing anymore. Eventually, the banging stopped. I heard his heavy footsteps stomp off, followed by a slammed car door and the sound of his engine tearing off down the street. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Just one line. How could you do this to your own family? I didn't respond. An hour after that, Megan tried. She called. Her name lit up on the screen. I let it ring. Then she called again. And again. 7 times in total. Finally, she texted. You think you're so clever? You think we can't live without you? Fine. See how long you last without a family. I read it. Smiled. Was that a threat? Or a promise? But the real explosion hit that evening. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard a key turning in my lock. I froze. Nobody was supposed to have a key. Nobody except. The door flew open. Dad barged in, face red and sweaty, Mom right behind him, eyes wild. You think you can lock me out of your life? Dad roared. Get out, I said, calm but firm. Get out? This is what you've become. Mom's voice shrieked, almost breaking. Abandoning your own family? We raised you. No, I said, drying my hair. You used me. There's a difference. Dad took a step closer, his fist clenched tight. You ungrateful little troublemaker. Try it, I said. The words came out before I even realized I was speaking. Calm. Steady. A challenge. His hand shook, but he didn't move. We both knew the deal. He wasn't a fighter. Never had been. He was just loud, a bully who yelled to cover up how scared he really was. What did you do? Mom's voice cracked. The cards don't work. Megan can't pay her bills. The mortgage, everything's frozen. That's right, I said, giving a slow nod. Every single thing I took care of? Gone. I shut it all down. Dad let out a bitter laugh. No joy in it, just acid. Oh, you think you've got all the power now? That we need you. Looks that way. I shrugged. I mean, you broke into my place just to beg me. Sounds like needing to me. His face twisted. Beg? You think this is begging? That's enough, I said sharply, cutting through his rant. I'm done. Mom stepped in, arms stretched out like she could hug the tension away. Please. We're your family. That means something. We're all we have. No, I corrected her. You're all you have. I'm done being your safety net. Your ATM. Your doormat. Dad's face scrunched up, furious. You little pest. I held up a finger. Get out. You can't do this, Mom whispered, eyes filling with tears. It's cruel. Cruel. I actually laughed. Cruel is calling your own son worthless while living off his money. Cruel is using me like a damn tool and laughing when I walk out the room. Dad moved forward again, but I didn't back down. Not this time. And this time he stopped. Shoulders slumped like the wind went out of him. You'll regret this, he muttered. You'll come crawling back. I won't, I said, my voice hard as steel. They left. Slammed the door so hard it rattled the walls. But as I stood there, listening to them stomp off, I knew this wasn't over. The very next day, they switched tactics. Megan showed up at my job. I spotted her through the glass, pale face, red eyes, like she'd been crying for hours. My boss raised his eyebrows, confused, then uncomfortable, as she started waving at me like she was drowning. I stayed put at my desk. Sir, there's a woman here. She's nobody, I said, not even looking up. But she didn't leave. I watched her talking to the receptionist, voice rising, hands shaking. Eventually, security came over and walked her out. I knew she'd be back. Later that night, there was another knock. This time, it was my landlord. Hey. Little situation, he said, shifting awkwardly. Your family's downstairs, making kind of a scene. Either you get them to leave, or I'm calling the cops. He hesitated. But they're your family. Not anymore, I said. I watched from my window as they stood outside, yelling, throwing their arms around like they were in a soap opera, until security finally stepped in and escorted them off the property. But I knew them. I knew how stubborn they were. I also knew what I left behind. That old black backpack, still sitting in the house. Still waiting. Waiting for them to open it. To really see how far I was willing to go. But I knew better than to enjoy the quiet. That silence? It was just the calm before the storm. For days, I ignored everything. The calls. The texts. The voicemails, full of crying and begging. I even skipped work. Let the world slip away for a bit. Just me and some peace and quiet. But I wasn't stupid. They weren't giving up. Not a chance. It started with Megan. Furious messages, blaming me for everything under the sun. All venom, no sense. Then came Mom's voice on my voicemail. Crying. Pleading. Be the bigger person, she said. Save the family. And then Dad. At first, just the usual stuff. Rage, insults, guilt. But then, he switched it up. He got calm. Quiet. Calculated. Son, his message said, let's just talk. No drama. Just us. There's a game this weekend. Our team's playing. Come on. Let's settle this like men. It was a trap. I felt it in my bones. But I went anyway. I wanted this. When I got to the stadium and saw those empty seats around him, and the black backpack clutched in his hands, I knew I was right. This wasn't about peace. It was about power. But I wasn't the same guy who stood in that living room, smiling and nodding like a puppet. Not anymore. The crowd was wild. Cheering, stomping, screaming stadium chaos. Perfect cover for secrets to get buried. Dad was waiting in section 14, row A. Empty seats all around him, even though the place was packed. He saw me right away, waved with one hand, the other holding tight to the backpack. My backpack. I walked down the steps slow and steady, locking eyes with him. He looked thrilled, like he'd just won something. Surprised I called you. He shouted over the noise, patting the seat beside him. Finally ready to talk like men. Huh? Talk, I said, settling into the seat next to him. Is that what this is? Oh, it's more than that, he said, leaning in close, dropping his voice to a whisper. You thought you were clever. Huh? Running away, cutting us off. He tapped the backpack. But you left a little something behind. We found it. Yeah? And guess what? Genius? We know. Know what? I asked, my voice as steady as the cold wind blowing across the field. Your secrets. Your lies. You think you're better than us? You think you're squeaky clean? His tone turned sharp. You've been hiding stuff. I knew it. All those years, acting like some saint. Like you were saving us. I nearly laughed. Open it, I said. Go ahead. Let's see what you think you found. His eyes flinched, anger and fear mixing together. Don't play games. I don't even have to open it. I know you've been stealing, manipulating, pretending to be the good son while stashing stuff away. Stash? I leaned back, felt the cold metal seat press against my spine. The only thing stashed in there is the truth. The crowd around us erupted as the home team scored. Cheers shook the stands. But right there, just me and him, it was all quiet. Just tension. And his trembling hands on the backpack. You're bluffing, he muttered. Trying to rattle me. But it's over. We're telling everyone what kind of man you really are. Go for it, I said, nodding toward the field. Tell them how I paid Megan's rent for 2 years. How I covered your debts after you blew half your pension gambling. I bought that phone for your precious granddaughter, right before she told me I didn't matter. His face darkened. Shut up. No, I said. Let's lay it out, Dad. You've got a whole backpack full of proof. Proof of everything I did for this family. And everything you took from me. And you still think you're holding the cards? His grip on the bag tightened. His knuckles turned white. Don't talk to me like that. Like what? I leaned in, my voice calm, but my eyes locked on his. Like the piece of furniture you always treated me like? Like your personal bank account? Your errand boy. Shut up, he snapped, jumping to his feet. A few people nearby turned to look. Sit down, I said, cold as ice. And for a second, I saw it. The fear in his eyes. He hated me. Sure. But more than that, he was scared he'd lost control. He gave a weak laugh, dry, strained. What? You gonna hit your old man now? You think anyone in this place would take your side? You think they'd take yours? I said, waving toward the crowd. A sea of strangers. You're just some angry old guy clinging to a bag of unpaid bills. They don't know me, but they don't need to. His mouth twisted. His voice dropped to a bitter growl. You, egoist. I smiled. I was your lifeline. And now? You're drowning. He swung. I saw it coming, his big, shaky hand moving toward my face. But I didn't move. Didn't even blink. He wanted a reaction. He wanted me to snap, to play the villain in his version of the story. But I just sat there and stared. His fist stopped, trembling, just inches from my face. I should have left you in the gutter, he said, voice shaking. You've always been a leech. Funny, I whispered, leaning close enough to smell the stale beer on his breath. That's exactly how I always felt about you. And right there, something in him broke. His arm dropped. His shoulders sagged. The crowd around us erupted with cheers from the game, but for him, that noise just covered up the last breath of whatever pride he had left. I reached out and took the backpack from his lap. He didn't even fight it. Want to know what's inside? I said loud enough for the people nearby to hear. He didn't respond. This, I said, unzipping the bag and pulling out a thick pile of papers, is everything I ever did for you. Every dollar. Every damn sacrifice. People turned. Some stared. Some whispered. I saw a couple folks pull out their phones. You want the truth? I held up the stack. Here it is. Proof that I carried this family. That I paid your bills. That I kept your house from being taken twice. Dad's face went pale. And you want to talk betrayal? I stood up, holding the papers over my head. You betrayed me the day you made me your personal bank. The day you laughed when they told me I was nothing. Stop, he muttered, voice small, body sinking back into his seat. No. You wanted a scene? You got one. I dropped the papers. They scattered like dead leaves across the metal steps. Then I turned and walked up the aisle, past the stairs, past the murmurs. You can't just walk away, he yelled behind me, voice cracking. But I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. For the first time in my life, his voice meant nothing. They didn't stop trying. Not right away. The day after that stadium showdown, after Dad bled out every drop of pride he had on those cold bleachers, my phone blew up. Call after call. Messages full of anger, guilt, desperation. The same cycle, just in a different order. Dad broke first. His tone shifted in just a few hours, from furious to pleading. We can talk this out, he said in one voicemail. I'll forget everything. We'll be a family again. I didn't answer. Then it was Mom. Her texts were soaked in guilt. You're tearing this family apart. We didn't mean it. We love you. I stopped reading them after a while. Then came Megan. Her first messages were poison. You're a coward. A selfish, spineless coward. You ruined everything. But after a few more, the tone cracked. Please, just talk to me. I didn't mean it. I was scared. Don't do this. I did it anyway. My reply was silence. That was my answer. That was my revenge. At first, they thought it was just a bluff, that I was playing some dramatic game. But as the days turned into weeks, the truth set in. Bills they used to ignore started stacking up. Their friends stopped choosing sides. And they realized they couldn't reach me. Their landlord called me at one point, nervous, stammering, saying they hadn't paid rent. I told him that wasn't my problem anymore. A few days later, Mom sent me a picture. The family, sitting around a table lit by a single candle. We have nothing left. I deleted the message without a second thought. One evening, on my way back from the grocery store, I saw him. Dad. He was pacing in front of my building like a madman. Face pale. Hands shaking. That old fire in his eyes? Gone. Replaced by something else. Fear. He saw me and lit up with this twisted sort of hope. He rushed over. Listen. You can't do this. You're my son. No. I said, not slowing. I was your wallet. He stepped in front of me, voice trembling. We raised you. We gave you everything. You used me, I said, looking him dead in the eye. And now? You've got nothing. I tried to step around him, but his hand shot out and grabbed my arm. You don't get to do this, he snarled. The old rage was bubbling back up. You think you're better than us? You think you can just walk away? I know I can, I said, yanking my arm free. And I did. He threw a punch, if you could call it that. It was slow, weak, barely brushed my shoulder. He stumbled and caught himself against the side of the building, gasping for air. Pathetic, I muttered. The word just slipped out. His face twisted, red with fury. You'll come crawling back. You always do. You're nothing without us. I laughed. Loud. Sharp. It echoed down the street. I was nothing with you. And I turned around. And I walked away. And I didn't look back. That night, I tossed my phone in the bottom drawer of my desk and left it there. The missed calls, the messages, they kept coming. But they couldn't get to me anymore. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. The handwriting was shaky. Mom's. Please. Your father's getting sick. Megan's losing her mind. We're falling apart. You're the only one who can fix this. Please come home. I didn't finish reading it. I crushed the paper in my hand and tossed it in the trash. They were falling apart? Good. Because for the first time, I wasn't. I didn't run. I didn't change my number. I didn't disappear. I stayed right where I was. But I cut them off. For good. I stopped being part of their world. And without me, that world started to collapse. Megan's friends stopped replying to her calls. Mom's cousins, the ones who used to send polite little Christmas cards, suddenly didn't want to know her. Dad? He lost it at work one too many times. They let him go. And I didn't care. I didn't even look. I just lived. I cooked for myself. Slept through the night. Went for long walks without bracing for another message demanding my time, my money, my sanity. They became background noise. Just voices echoing from a house I let burn down. And me? I was finally free. The months rolled by. And that silence, They used to weaponize it. Now it was my peace. I got up when I felt like it. Ate real food without guilt. Spent weekends exploring the parts of the city I never took time to see. In those quiet moments, I found something that had always been missing: freedom. Sometimes I'd catch myself bracing for the buzz of a text or the guilt-trip voicemail, but it never came. I'd done the unthinkable. I hadn't buried them in the ground. I'd buried them in my past. One cool fall morning, I was walking down Main Street. I passed the little cafe where I used to buy fancy birthday cakes for Megan. Past the boutique where I blew too much money on gifts. The restaurant where I paid for every single family dinner. Back then, I thought I was being generous. Now I know I was just being used. They weren't memories anymore. They were ghosts. On the corner, a street musician was playing something soft and raw. His voice wasn't smooth, it was honest. His fingers moved over the strings like they meant it. I stopped walking and let the music drift over me. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about heartbreak either. It was about release. About letting go. The city moved on around me, horns honking, people rushing, life happening. And I just stood there, still. When the song ended, I pulled a 30 from my wallet and dropped it into the open guitar case. The musician nodded. I smiled. Not because anyone expected me to. Not because I had to. But because I wanted to. And that made all the difference. I didn't need them. I never did. I kept walking, each step feeling lighter, each breath a little easier. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops, lighting up the sky in gold and red, I felt it, deep down. That quiet kind of knowing. I was free. Thanks for sticking around and listening to my story.